Hello, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3, and in this particular video, what I'm going to do is get into whether you should actually look at rankings for admissions to a PhD program in strategy. I'm actually a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And what I'm going to do in this video is go through where you can actually find these rankings, why do they matter, and then finally get into, some issues that you might think about in terms of the rankings, in terms of maybe they're not as clear as what you'd like them to be. So if you don't know, this whole reciprocity project that I'm doing, it started out as a website that I created that I thought was going to be really cool in terms of helping writers and academic writers. And then I started doing these YouTube videos to get the word out, and it's sort of growing beyond that. So it's really cool to be able to be part of this. So should you actually pay attention to rankings during your PhD, or when you're thinking about getting into a PhD program in strategy in a college business, in doing any sort of business administration doctorate, right? A DBA, that kind of stuff. The answer is really yes and no. It's not necessarily all that clear. First of all, where can you get these rankings? You can go to the Financial Times rankings. There's a bunch of rankings that they have. Executive MBA programs, global MBAs, this kind of stuff. Then there's also the UT Dallas research rankings. That's a really good one that you probably should look at. It probably should be your first source to look at, because what you need to do and what you need to understand is the PhD program or doing a doctorate is really thinking about doing research as much as you possibly can. And I know not everybody does that when they get out. They do all sorts of stuff. They go into administration, they go into teaching, and but the first little bit, the way that you actually get a job is thinking about research. And that's a key thing. So you'd want to look at that. The other one is the U.S. World News Rankings, which is a really nice sort of well-rounded one, but it tends to focus, it's very U.S. centric, which is good because there's lots of American universities that are top-notch, but then there's a lot of places around the world as well. So why do rankings actually matter? And by the way, I'm not going to tell you one way or the other in terms of whether you should, use it for your decision, or whether, which ones are the best rankings, that kind of stuff. So it's up to you to decide. So why do rankings actually matter? Well, rankings are a lagging indicator of resources that are flowing to the school. So why do I say lagging? Lagging being it is a thing that happens after the fact of building a really good university. So rankings are a lagging indicator of resources that are flowing to a particular school. So why do I say lagging? It's because it's happening after the fact. It's usually after the school has built a core competence, just like in a business, it's built. So institutions, if you didn't know that, they build core competences, they get good at something. And then after they get good at something, they usually get the resources that flow towards them. So, for example, they might get a big endowment from one resource or one donor, which is amazing when people do that. And then they will start hiring professors and stuff like that. And pretty soon their rankings start increasing. Or it could be that, for whatever reason, their football team did very well. This is, again, US centric. Their football team did very well for a couple of years, and then they started moving up in the rankings, right? Because they started getting publicity, and students really liked what they were doing. The football team was doing, and then they got greater, improved students going to that particular institution, right? So stuff like this happens. It's a lagging indicator of resources at a particular school. So if you attend so this is why this actually matters, right? Rankings actually matter, is if you attend an institution or if you go to a PhD program that has high rankings, you generally are going to have more resources given to you to some degree. And it's widely varies in terms of whether schools do this or not. But, it might be things like you get access to different contacts, right? Business contacts. It might be a professor knows somebody in one of the Fortune 500 companies, right? So they're more likely to know people at that particular institution because of that. They might have more financial resources, although that widely varies between institutions, even the top institutions. And there might be a larger number of research productive or research active faculty, because what ends up happening is that those institutions that are higher ranking, they generally pay more. Sometimes, but generally they're going to pay more. And so you get more research active faculty because it's a whole competitive hierarchy at schools. But that doesn't necessarily tell you everything. That doesn't really give you a complete picture, right? So that is kind of a generic story about why rankings matter, or to think about rankings. But there's lots of factors that you should really consider with thinking about a PhD program and thinking about the rankings themselves. So first of all, the key thing, and you're not going to be aware of this because this is the first time you apply to this kind of stuff, or maybe it's the second time you apply to a PhD program, but rankings vary a lot year to year through, over the course of me being at this particular institution that I'm at, and it's a great institution. It's jumped up tremendously in rankings over a very short time. It's not because I'm here. It's because they're doing some wonderful things. The other thing is that rankings, you can go down in rankings very quickly depending on what's going on. And a lot of it really depends on thinking of, who's at that particular institution. Maybe they hire a star researcher, for example, because they want to be in a particular location. And then all of a sudden they're very research productive, and, the rankings sort of increase because of this research productivity. And not only do institutions jump around year to year in terms of the rankings, but across institutions, or across rankings, I meant, it varies substantially, right? So if you go to the Financial Times, they're going to give you different sort of rankings compared to the U.S. World News, compared to UT Dallas rankings. They're all going to be all over the chart. It's really going to be quite hard to have any sort of consistent metric on who is, ranked number one, right? So it's going to not really add a lot of information to your decision. It's going to make you a little bit more confused if you start looking at all that kind of stuff. It makes your decision a lot more complicated, right? It's going to be all over the chart. So that's one thing to know about. The other thing to know about, and I think this is probably more important other than that, is that there are amazing faculty all over the world at institutions you've never heard about, and that are just top-notch people. They're amazing, that they are doing really wonderful things. And so that should not be overlooked, right? So what you're looking at, and an important thing to look at when you're thinking about a PhD program in strategy, entrepreneurship, innovation, business administration, whatever, is looking at research and personality fit, right? So you want to find, if you're interested in this one particular area, you want to see if there's people doing research in that particular area. I don't know, whatever it is. If it's innovation, it's finance, some weird thing in finance, or some weird obscure thing in accounting, you go look for those people. The other thing is you want to talk to those people that you might possibly work with, right? It's going to be a long relationship. You're probably looking at least the 5 years that you're in the PhD program. And it's probably going to be another 5 to 10 more years of working with those people after that. And that's a long relationship. It's a marriage, right? So you want to make sure that you actually have fit with that particular person. Can you get along with them? Are they wonderful? Is it going to be somebody that you're going to like to be around to a large extent? That's going to be a key thing to think about. The third thing is, you really don't need to be at a really high a high-ranking institution to be research productive in any sort of way, that again, people are really research productive all around the world. And what I've seen people do is they actually build their own college around them. So they're interested in a research topic. They like it so much that they just keep doing great research and thinking about that thing. It's going to take you a few years, and they keep thinking about that thing, but then they just start building a following, and they start introducing themselves or bumping into people at high-ranking universities, or very prestigious people that are top in their field, and you eventually just start working with them, and it doesn't matter where they did their PhD to a large extent. Now, early on, it might matter in terms of getting an academic job at a particular institution early on, but in the long run, it really doesn't matter. After you've been around for 20 years, and that's what you should be thinking about, is it's not going to matter at the beginning, all that stuff, because you're just going to gravitate towards people that you're interested in, and they're going to gravitate towards you over the long run. And then the fourth thing that I think is really important that you shouldn't overlook, and I think because we are in a college business, most of us are very, very competitive to a large degree, right? That you're applying to a PhD program in strategy means that you're very competitive, or thinking about it, you're very competitive. It's hard to get into, right? So, but the thing you shouldn't neglect, and that's really important for you, is that it's truly just a personal choice. And rankings, while they do matter, you have to also think about your sort of personal life largely as well. And that's, to me, that's really important, is thinking about your personal life as well as your work life, right? So is this particular place going to fit? Is this community going to fit with me and my family? Is it going to fit? Am I close enough to relatives? Maybe you have parents and they're elderly. Is it going to be close enough to them that I'm not flying 24 hours just to visit them, and I can only visit them at certain times? That's really big stuff to think about, and those are really important decisions, and they do matter. They very much matter, and I've seen people. I've seen the people that take that seriously actually tend to be a little bit more productive. I think they stay with the career a little bit longer because there's less concessions that they have to make along the way, in terms of doing this sort of, should I do a work thing or should I do a life thing? And they just kind of flow into each other if you make the right decision, if you're close to family, that kind of stuff. It's a really hard thing to do, to live far away, and this is kind of personal experience. Living far away, I kind of have to, because my family, they live in a very remote place in Canada. There's not a lot of institutions, not a lot of schools around there, so we kind of have to live far away. But it is a big thing, and especially as you get older, you start thinking about that a lot more in terms of this family stuff. So that's all I wanted to talk about, and those four important factors. So what I went into is told you where you can actually get the rankings to get a PhD in strategy. Then I went into whether rankings matter and talked to you that yes, they do matter, but there are all these other factors that you should really think about at the same time, right? So that they fluctuate dramatically year over year between rankings, that there's amazing people all over the world that are doing really incredible stuff, and they're not at, and it depends on the rankings. Their institution might not even be ranked. It might not even be in the rankings at that moment, because maybe it's a new school, or maybe they're at a research institute, for example, versus being at a university, which are differences. Maybe, anyways, there's lots of different things. And then I also wanted to point out is that you can be research productive anywhere, and then as well is that it's truly just a personal choice of where you go and what you do, and that personal stuff matters to your decision. So that's it. Have a good day. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and do subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, take care. Bye.